도움이 되도록 써야 된다. 수행자가 왜 이런 일을 하느냐 하는 질문은 좀 맞지 않는 것 같아요. 수행자니까 마땅히 그런 일을 해야 되지 않느냐 이렇게 생각해요. 그래서 이것을 수행과 벗어난 어떤 특정한 일이 아니고 다른 사람을 행복하게 하는데 그들이 고통받는 원인 중에 차별이 원인이라면 차별을 개선해야 되고 배고픔이 원인이라면 배고픔을 해소해야 되는 거다. 그런 측면에서 저는 제 힘이 닿는 데까지 이런 활동을 하고요. 또 많은 사람들이 이런 일에 참여하도록 더 인도도 하고 또 격려도 하고 함께 하기도 합니다. 공공장소에 가면 종교에 관계없이 누구나 다 참여할 수 있고 또 그들의 고뇌를 들으면 그들이 사용하는 생활적인 용어로 그 문제를 함께 해결해 나갈 수 있기 때문에 절 안에서만 하지 않고 공공장소에서도 많이 하고 있습니다. 그리고 수행이라는 것은 자기 마음을 잘 살펴서 늘 행복하게, 가볍게, 자유롭게 가지는 게 수행이지 그렇기 때문에 법문을 하면서도 수행을 할 수가 있고 상담을 하면서 수행을 할 수가 있고 그런 가운데서 일어나는 자기 마음에 깨어있고 살피는 게 수행이기 때문에 수행을 어떤 특정한 형식만으로 우리가 고집해서 말할 필요는 없다 이렇게 생각합니다. 수행자는 자기를 행복하게 하고 자기를 자유롭게 해야 된다. 동시에 다른 사람을 행복하게 하고 자유롭게 하는데 자기가 작은 도움이라도 되는 삶을 살아야 된다. 그럴 때 나도 좋고 너도 좋고 또 지금도 좋고 미래도 좋고 이것이 부처님의 가르침이다. 이렇게 생각하고 수행 정진하고 또 전법하고 있습니다. 주제를 가리지 말고
So regardless of topic,
그냥 대화를 해봅시다.
let's just engage in a dialogue.
좋죠?
It's good?
Sir, I'm Andrew Nassius, the director.
So I gotta go on and get it.
Let's start, because we're going to run out of time. I'm Andrew Natsios, the director of the Scowcroft Institute. We made a decision last year to begin a series of lectures dealing with major figures within the great religious traditions of the world. We had Dr. Abdul Karim Sarouche speak about Islam and politics a couple of weeks ago. And today we've asked the Venerable Panmyong Sunim, who is a major figure in civil society in South Korea, obviously a Buddhist monk, who has a network of 100 Dharma centers, teaching centers in South Korea, to speak about his views. We're going to talk specifically about North Korea. Just to give you a little background, I met the Venerable Panmyong Sunim, I think in Beijing in 1996, when both of us suspected a major famine was taking place in North Korea, although it was not clear at the time. He had remarkable connections in the grassroots level in North Korea, and I was working for World Vision at the time, the NGO, and we met with Jasper Becker, who wrote a very famous book about the Chinese famine of 58 to 62 that we now believe killed about 45 million people. And from there, we developed a friendship, and he took me up to the border between North Korea and China, in China, in 1998. I think it was November. It was very cold, I remember, 20 degrees Fahrenheit. It was not fun. To the right on the Tumen River. We were literally, we could see North Korea on the other side of the river, and we interviewed several dozen North Korean refugees randomly, because there were hundreds of thousands of them in China that had escaped the famine. And that was the basis for a book that I wrote called The Great North Korean Famine, which the Venerable Aung San Suu Kyi is a major figure in. And so that we've known each other for that many years. In my view, he knows more about what is happening in North Korea, not in the Politburo, but at the grassroots level, in people's lives, economically, socially, in some very interesting ways. He has insights that I think, frankly, scholars and analysts in the West do not understand what's happening in the country. So I'm going to let him make an initial statement, but he asked if we could have, first I will ask a series of questions for a while, and he will answer, that's what he prefers, and then I will open it to the audience to ask questions. I'm going to have to leave early for a flight, so Don Bailey will continue moderating this as I leave for the airport. I first want to thank you for coming. He has been on a trip of 100, how many cities have you spoken in?
54.
54 cities around Europe, Canada, and the United States. And he must be exhausted, but he never shows any evidence of being tired. I even look tired when I get up in the morning. So my first question is, you formed your NGO because of the famine. Why did you do that?
제가 95년도에 중국 국경 지대에 있는 그 산이라고 아주 유명한 산이 있습니다. 그 산에 관광을 갔습니다.
So I actually toured to a famous mountain in 1995, to a mountain called Paektu Mountain, which rests right at the border of North Korea and China.
그때 중국에 날 아는 사람은 북한에서 사람이 굶어 죽는다고 저한테 얘기했습니다.
Then a person I knew in China told me of the news that there were people starving to death in North Korea.
제가 그걸 믿지 않았습니다.
So I didn't believe him at the time.
가난하다는 거는 이해가 되지만 굶어 죽는다, 그건 아프리카나 이런 나라에서
When was this? About what time?
1995.
1995.
어떻게 그 북한 같은 이런 이미 행정력이 갖춰진 국가에서 굶어 죽느냐, 그건 아니다고 생각했습니다.
So I didn't believe him at the time. I understood that North Korea was poor, but the fact that a massive number of people were starving to death, he only thought that those things happened in countries that did not have a legal state or did not have social order or political orders. But so he never thought that those kind of incidents or events could happen in North Korea.
그래서 그때는 그걸 부담을 듣지 않았습니다.
So I didn't take him seriously at the time.
제가 96년도에 다시 갔습니다.
So I went back to the area in 1996.
제가 그때 인도의 불가족 천민 마을에서 그 보호 활동을 하고 있었습니다.
So at that time I was doing charity work in an untouchables village in India.
그래서 제가 그 아이들 사진을 가져갔습니다.
So I took photos of all those kids.
그래서 그분에게 말했습니다.
So I talked to the same person.
이제 우리는 세계화 시대에 살고 있기 때문에 자기 민족이라고 부르는 건 아니다. 누구가 더 어려움에 처해 있느냐 여기에 따라 도와야 되는데 지금 인도 아이들은 이렇게 어렵다 이렇게 보여줬습니다.
So I showed him the pictures of the untouchables, those poor kids in the untouchables village, and told him that since we live in a global village, it's the needs of the person should be based on, should drive who gets the help, not based on some ethnocentric ideas or who deserves more help.
그랬더니 그분이 그 사진을 보더니 북한 아이들보다 더 심하다고 합니다.
So he saw the pictures of the kids in the untouchables village and told him that North Korean kids are actually looking more emaciated than those pictures.
그래도 저는 믿어지지 않았습니다.
Even at that time, I didn't believe him.
내가 믿지 않으니까 이 사람이 나를 배에 태워서 북한과 중국 사이에 있는 강변에서 얄루강에서 나를 배에 태워서 북한 쪽을 쭉 하면서 보여줬습니다.
So to convince him, he took me on a boat along the Yalu River and kind of skirted towards the middle of the river, right across the border, so we can look into the coast along the river to North Korea.
근데 바로 강가에 한 10m 정도 떨어지는 강가에 있는 아이를 봤는데 정말 인도 아이 같았습니다.
So I saw a kid, a really skinny, mashy kids. It reminded me of those kids in the Untouchables village in India, just 10 meters from where I was riding.
인도 아이들 같으면 그럼 박시시 하고 구걸을 합니다.
And then if he was in India, those kids would follow me saying Paksisi, asking for and begging for food.
근데 이 아이는 고개를 딱 숙이고 얼굴을 들지 않았습니다.
But this North Korean kid had his head down, would not raise his head.
그럼 제 아이가 왜 저기 고개를 숙이고 있냐?
So I asked him, why is he doing that?
그러니까 그 사람이 말하기를 북한 아이들은 구걸할 자유도 없습니다. 이렇게
And
말했어요.
he said North Korean kids don't even have the freedom to beg.
그러니까 아이들에게도 이렇게 외국인에게 구걸하거나 이렇게 못하도록 교육이 돼 있었습니다.
So he was educated from very little not to approach foreigners.
그래서 제가 배에 있는 음식을 주려고 했습니다.
So I wanted to give him some food that we had in the boat.
그러니까 안 된다는 거예요.
And he said no.
왜 안 됐냐?
I said, why not?
국경이라는 거예요.
This is the border.
국경인데 왜 안 되느냐? 음식을 주는데 뭐가 문제냐?
So what's the problem? I want to just give him some food.
그러면은 중국 법에 어긋난다.
Then he says that goes against Chinese law.
그때 저한테 이런 생각이 들었어요.
So at that time, this is what I thought.
이게 새는 이쪽에 음식이 없고 이쪽에 음식이 있으면 날라와서 먹고 가는데 왜 사람인데 여기는 음식이 없고 여기 음식이 있는데도 불구하고 이걸 주지 못하는가?
So a bird, a simple bird, would fly over to where there's food in order to peck at the food, but a person, a human being, can't do the same thing.
국경이라는 게 도대체 뭐냐?
So what is the meaning of a border?
국가라는 게 뭐냐?
What is the meaning of a nation?
이것은 사람을 돕기 위해서 있는 건데
These things should exist for to serve people.
왜 사람이 죽어가는데도 어떤 돕는 일을 못하게 하는 게 국가도 국경이 돼야 되느냐?
But right now, those things are serving to prevent people from helping those who are starving to death.
저는 그때까지 그런 생각을 못 해봤습니다.
So that was the first time I actually started thinking along those lines.
그래서 제가 돌아와서 이 북한 기란 문제를 세상에 알리고 돕기 시작했습니다.
So that's when I came back to South Korea and started my work in trying to publicize the plight of North Koreans and trying to help them myself.
그때 한국에서는 남북 간에 굉장히 긴장이 고조됐습니다.
So then, as it is now, there was a high tension between North and South Korea.
뭐 지금 잠수함이 남한에 오고 분쟁이 격화됐습니다.
There was a lot of conflicts and incidents, including that of a North Korean sub that landed in South Korea.
한국 정부는 적십자 차원에서의 지원도 다 중단시켰습니다.
The South Korean government would not even allow the Red Cross to help North Korea.
그때 저는 생각했습니다.
So at that time, this is what I thought.
이 분쟁이 내가 본 굶주리는 아이의 문제가 해결되느냐?
Does this conflict help that little kids that I saw?
해결이 안 됐다.
No.
근데 왜 이 분쟁을 보고 나는 일을 멈춰야 하느냐?
Then why this conflict prevent me from helping that child?
이것은 아니다.
So this cannot be.
그래서는 그런 가운데서도 계속 지원을 호소했습니다.
So even in midst of those tensions, I talked to everyone I could in order to plead the case to help North Koreans.
내가 이 활동을 멈추는 것은 그 아이가 그 굶주리는 것이 해결될 때 멈춰야지 분쟁하고는 관계없는 일이다.
So I told myself that I'll stop working, I'll stop doing this once I can solve that child's problem. Before then, no amount of tension or conflict between North and South Korea is going to stop me.
저는 한국 사회 안에서는 나의 행동이 당시에 많이 저항을 받았습니다.
So at that time, I faced a lot of resistance internal to South Korean politics and society.
한 2, 3년 하면 해결될 줄 알았는데 지금 18년이 됐는데 아직 끝이 안 나네요.
So I thought I'll be able to overcome those challenges and barriers within South Korea in 2 or 3 years, but they still exist, and it's been 18 years.
How many people died in the North Korean famine?
저희 통계로는 한 300만 정도 사망.
So according to my numbers, our organization's numbers, about close to 3 million people starved to death.
두 가지로 조사했습니다.
So our methodology consists of 2 ways.
1,800여 명을 인터뷰해서
We interviewed about 1,800 people.
In China, not in China.
네네.
Yes, in China.
그래서 가족 중에 이 기아 상황에서 가족 중에 몇 명이 죽었는지를 체크하고요.
And asked them how many of their family members starved to death
죽은 이유가 뭔지.
and what the reasons for their death were.
자기가 사는 인민반이라는 것은 한 20가구 정도 됩니다.
And also how many people died in their little units, basically people's unit, which consists of about 20 families.
거기서 몇 명이 죽었는지
And how many people died in that unit.
따로 통계를 냈습니다.
So we actually, derived up numbers from asking those questions.
또 그 사람들의 직업을 조사하고
Then also asked them what their jobs were,
그 사람들의 거주지 지역을 조사하고
and also their localities, region that they're from,
나이를 조사했습니다.
and their age.
이렇게 해서 통계를 내서
And so we created a demographics pictures out of that.
그러니까 북한 전역에 농촌일 경우에는 농촌 인구에 대해만 그 사람의 직업이 농민일 때는 농민 인구에 대해서만 적용을 하고
And so depending on the job, if the person, the refugee we interview was a farmer, then we would only take what he said about his lands or his locality and include that into our calculations.
노동자일 때는 노동자 인구에만 그 비율을 적용하고
And if he was a laborer, then we'd only take the information about what we thought he would credibly know into the calculation.
그 지역 사람일 때는 그 지역 인구만 적용하고
So if it's from a certain locality, then we'll only take the information about that locality that's credible.
그렇게 해서 저희들이 통계를 냈습니다.
And that's how we actually came up with a larger figure.
그때 한 350만 정도 통계가 나왔습니다.
So our initial figures about 3.5 million people.
그러나 북한에서 자연사 하는 경우도 있기 때문에
But of course, there are also people who die of natural causes in North
그
Korea.
부분을 감안해서 저희시키고
So we took that out.
이렇게 됐을 때 최소 300만 정도 사망한 걸로 통계가 나왔습니다.
But even so, I think the famine had about 3 million victims.
또 비공식적으로 북한 관리나 또 중국 쪽의 정보를 비공식적으로 받았습니다.
And we also received unofficial information from officials within North Korea and China.
그러나 그 얘기는 해봐야 아무 증거가 없기 때문에 이 통계를 기준으로 말씀드렸습니다.
But obviously, those sources of information didn't have any credibility, or we couldn't prove it. So that's why we went through this calculation using certain methodology in order to arrive at the number.
일단 북한 관리들에게 내가 이렇게 물어봅니다.
So this is what I asked North Korean officials.
한 250만 정도는 죽었지 않았을까?
Don't you think that about 2.5 million people died?
그보다는 더 죽었을 거야.
And they said, no, it's probably more.
그래서 한 300만 죽었나?
About 3 million.
에이, 그만큼은 안 죽었을 거야.
Then they go, probably not that much.
예를 들면 이렇게 이제 대화를 하면서 대충 그 당시에 북한 당국에서 파악하는 건 한 280만 정도 되는 것 같은 느낌을 받았습니다.
So the impression I got was that from their own internal investigation, North Korean authorities, they probably think about 2.8 million of their people died or starved to death in 1990s.
그러나 북한 안에 그런 통계가 있다는 얘기도 저는 듣지 못했습니다.
But I actually never heard that there was a formal investigation as to the extent of the famine.
그러나 저희들이 그 오랜 활동을 하면서 이렇게 그런 통계와 느낌에서 한 300만 정도 인구 감소가 생긴 것 같습니다.
But based on our experience, background, and relationship, and different sources of material, we believe about 3 million is probably closer to the truth.
이거는 북한 인구의 거의 15%에 가까운 사람입니다.
So at that time, it was close to about 15% of the total population in North Korea.
중국에서 그 58년도, 62년도 사이에서는 중국에서는 3천만이라고 말하고 그 밖에서는 한 8천만 정도 보고 있습니다.
So during the massive famine in China in 58 through 60 or so, a lot of people starved to death. Chinese authorities say about 35 million.
3천만. 중국에서는 3천만.
About 30 million in China,
8천만까지.
but external figures probably show up to 80 million people starved to death.
그러니까 이것은 공산주의 사회에서 이렇게 정부가 통제된 사회에서 이러한 많은 죽음은 사실 바깥 사회에서 그들이 발표하지 않는 이상은 잘 모릅니다.
So in cases of a communist regime in which all the information outflow and inflow are totally controlled, it's very difficult for external agencies to calculate with any accuracy what the real numbers are.
어쨌든 큰 비극이었습니다.
But in any case, it was a huge tragedy.
그러나 이것은 관심 있는 사람만 알지 일반인은 잘 모르는 일입니다.
But it's a tragedy that only select few who are interested knows about. It's not something that has been popularized.
그래서 우리는 이것을 조용한 전쟁이라고 부릅니다.
That's why we used to call it as a quiet war.
한국 전쟁에 3년 동안에 280만에서 300만 정도 죽었다고 알려져 있습니다.
So during the 3 years of Korean War in 50 to 53, there were about 3 million people who died.
그와 똑같은 사망자가 생겼습니다.
Basically, the same number of people starved to death in North Korea.
그럼에도 불구하고 세상은 조용합니다.
Despite that, there was no outcry from the world.
한 가지 이유는 죽는 자가 이렇게 말을 하지 못하고 죽었다는 겁니다.
The thing was, those victims from the famine did not have a voice,
바깥에서 아무도 관심을 갖지 않았다는 겁니다.
and no one from the outside paid any attention.
바깥으로 알려지지 않으니까 세상에는 아무 일도 없는 것 같이 됐습니다.
Because there was no news to the outside, the world did not know that this event existed.
그래서 저는 그들의 아픔의 아우성을 바깥 세상에 알리고자 했습니다.
So I wanted to become a voice to the external world of their suffering.
거기에 앤드루 나치오스 씨가 많은 이렇게 도움을 줬습니다.
And Professor Nachios was a big help in getting their voice out there.
앤드루 나치오스 씨의 도움이 없었다면 이것을 세계에 알리는데 거의 불가능했을 겁니다.
It would have been impossible without his help to actually let their voice out there.
저는 이것을 조사는 할 수 있었지만
Because I could actually conduct an investigation,
세상에 알릴 수 있는 능력은 없었습니다.
but I did not have the capacity on my own to let the world know about it.
그러나 앤드루 나치오스 씨는 이 분야의 전문가입니다.
But Professor Nachios is an expert in this area.
저하고 하루 종일 얘기를 했습니다.
So we talked the whole day,
온갖 걸 물어봤습니다.
and he asked me a lot of questions.
그러고 나서는 걔가 맞다고 판정을 하셨습니다.
Then he judged at the end of all those questions and answers that he believed this was a famine.
그래서 저를 미국의 여러 곳에 이렇게 소개를 해줬어요.
Then he introduced me to a lot of people in the United States.
그래서 이것이 국제적인 문제가 되도록 해주셨습니다.
And it helped getting the voice out and the news out that this was a tragedy deserving of international attention.
이런 자리를 빌려서 한번 감사 말씀
So I want to
드려보겠습니다.
thank him once again for his help.
At one point, I could not convince we couldn't, in the NGO community, NGOs formed a coalition, major NGOs that were working in North Korea, could not convince policymakers in Washington, in either party, that this was going on. And we realized the source of the problem may have been the intelligence community because they were getting reports. You know, our policymakers don't run around North Korea seeing what's going on. They rely on the intelligence community. So at one point, we had a very unusual situation. I asked that a friend of mine from one of the intelligence agencies come get a meeting of all of the analysts from a dozen different U.S. government agencies that did intelligence gathering. CIA, the DIA, INR, and the State Department, et cetera, et cetera. And we had them in one room, and the Venerable Bumyo came and addressed them. It was a stunning day, because they had, I mean, he has more information about what's going on in the grassroots of North Korea, in my view, than anybody in the external world. Because he has a very calming manner. He's not threatening when he speaks to the North Koreans, and they don't see him as on one side or the other of the conflict, and so people trust him to speak in a low-key way that's not politicized. He avoids politicizing this. And as a result, he was able to get, in my view, an objective observation of what was actually taking place. So let me just ask, and by the way, the intelligence gathering after that all showed, even though I wasn't allowed to see it because I didn't have clearance, I was told it shifted once he gave his several-hour lecture to these analysts and said, you need to look at these things and this will tell you what's happening. And when they began to do that, you began to see a shift, and then senior policy people could no longer deny. Some of them didn't want to do any assistance, but they could not deny what was happening inside the country. I'm sorry to speak so fast. I keep forgetting we have to translate everything. So, what caused the famine?
외부적으로는 동유럽의 붕괴였고요.
So from the external factors that contributed to the famine was the collapse of the Eastern Europe.
그러니까 북한의 모든 그 무역이 중단이 됐습니다.
So basically, all their external commerce with those countries stopped.
미국의 경제 제재로 인해서 자본주의 국가와는 교역이 안 됐습니다.
So of course, the ongoing U.S. sanctions against North Korea preventing them from reaching out to the Western nations.
그래서 외환이 바로 고갈이 됐습니다.
So basically, they ran out of foreign currency,
그러니까 석유를 수입을 못했습니다.
so they couldn't import petroleum fuel.
그러니까 모든 공장들이 스탑이 됐습니다.
So all the factories stopped running.
비료도 생산을 못했습니다.
They could not produce fertilizers.
비닐도 생산을 못하고.
They could not produce vinyls.
그러니까 이것이 바로 농업 자재가 생산이 안 되니까 농업 생산량이 급격하게 떨어졌습니다.
So basically, they couldn't produce those materials they used to produce harvest. So obviously, their harvest efficiency went down.
두 번째 내적인 요인이 있습니다.
So they also have internal factors.
북한은 계속 기술보다는 사상을 중요시했어요.
Because North Korea always focused on the ideology rather than technology.
기술자들은 충성심이 없다고 많이 숙청이 됐습니다.
So a lot of the technocrats or people who are more skilled in technology were purged because their loyalty was suspect.
그래서 이 농업 생산량에 있어서 매년 계획을 높이 잡습니다.
And also there's agricultural planning. They also always increase their annual goals for harvest.
그리고 또 초과 달성을 시킵니다.
And then they force them to actually exceed those goals.
또 거기다가 또 다음에 또 계획을 높이 세웁니다.
And the following year they increase and build upon that high goals.
이렇게 해서 거의 1,000만 톤까지 올라갔습니다.
So at that point, I think the harvest they raised it up to 10 million tons.
그러나 실제는 그렇게 안 됐습니다.
But in fact, that did not happen.
그러니까 과잉 생산 많이 생산됐다 하고 거기에서 비율을 가지고 정부가 가져가 보니까 농민은 남는 게 없었습니다.
So basically, the announced or the official harvest amount was 10 million tons. But obviously, in fact, that it wasn't 10 million tons. But the government took their slot, their percentage, based on 10 million tons, which means very little was left for the people.
그러니까 농민들이 식량이 공공해졌습니다.
So it's the farmers that started to suffer from lack of food.
아무리 생산해봐야 남는 게 없었습니다.
So no matter how hard they would actually farm, there was nothing left over.
그러니까 농민이 일을 제대로 안 했습니다.
So there was no incentive for them to actually do any hard work.
이것도 큰 하나의 원인입니다.
So that was a huge contributing factor.
근데 이제 결정적인 거는 94년, 95년도에 대홍수가 났습니다.
But what was the key driving factor or triggering factor was that there was a huge famine, a huge flood in 94 and 95.
그러면서 급격하게 기아가 몰려왔습니다.
And that actually triggered the onset of the famine.
그 94년도에 또 김일성 주석이 죽었습니다.
And in 94, there was death of Kim Il-sung.
새로운 정부는 제대로 대응을 못했습니다.
And the new government was not able to react rapidly to the situation.
외부에 알려질까봐 숨기기에 급급했습니다.
So they were only interested in hiding the fact of their suffering from the outside world.
그때까지 북한은 배급을 했습니다.
Until then, the system for food distribution was through a public distribution system.
그러니까 식량
Just
부족.
describe what the public distribution system was, how it worked.
네, 네 가지, 5가지 종류 계급이 있습니다.
So there are 5 different classes of people in North Korea.
첫째, 평양에 사는 고위층의 1급이고
The top tier, the first tier, are the elites that live in Pyongyang.
군인과 경찰 등 시큐리티가 2급이고
The second tier are the military and the security people.
그다음에 이제 큰 이제 국가 기업, 대기업, 국영 대기업이 3급이고
The third are the state-run enterprises, huge industrial complexes.
그다음 일반 주민들은 지역에서 배급을 합니다.
And then the regular, ordinary citizens are taken care of by the local governments.
농민은 배급을 하지 않고 자기 생산량에서 우선적으로 공급을 받습니다.
The farmers actually do not get their food from the public distribution system. They actually take their food before they remit the rest of the amount to the government.
그러니까 이 식량 생산이 부족해지니까
So now that there's an absolute lack of food,
이 4급 노동자들 일반인에게 배급이 중지됐습니다.
the PBS system stopped running for those regular people.
그리고 3급 노동자들에게도 일부 중단이 됐습니다.
And even for the third tier people, it ran only partially.
그러니까 이 노동자 그룹에서 먼저 사망자가 생겨났습니다.
So you started seeing the first victims of the famine from the from the laborers.
그러니까 일반 나라 같으면 가난한 사람이 먼저 굶어 죽는데 이건 배급을 하다가 딱 중단이 되니까 왕창 이렇게 한꺼번에 사람들이 죽었습니다. 왜냐하면 어느 집에 가도 식량이 없었기 때문에.
So in a regular countries, it's the poor who actually starve to death first because they can't afford food. But in North Korea situation at that time, no one actually had food because the PDS system stopped running all at once without warning.
그래서 먼저 지역적으로는 한경도 쪽에서 먼저 사망자가 발생했고
So from a regional perspective, as the North and South Hamgyong provinces, when we started seeing people starve to death first,
이것이 이제 서쪽으로 가서 전국적으로 확산이 돼요.
then it started to spread outwards westward from there and expanded and covered the whole country.
계층적으로는 노동자가 먼저 사망을 했고
So from a class perspective, it's the laborers who actually started dying off first.
그 다음에 이제 농민들 쪽으로 확산이 돼요.
Then it started to touch and spread to the farmers as well.
이렇게 해서 95년부터 시작해서 98년까지가 가장 많이 죽었어요.
So the height of the famine started in 95 and lasted till 98.
그때는 그냥 가을에 이렇게 바람이 불면 낙엽이 떨어지듯이 사람들이 이렇게 죽어갔다고 그들은 말합니다.
So at that time, they actually make an analogy to leaves falling off fall trees, basically. So like autumn leaves, people would just kind of fall and die in masses.
지금도 굉장히 식량이 부족합니다. 지금도 식량이 굉장히 부족.
So even now, today, they have an absolute lack of food.
영양실조가 아주 심하고
And there's a lot of chronic malnutrition all around.
굶어 죽는 사람도 있고.
And there are people still starving to death in North Korea.
그러나 지금은 대량화산은 아닙니다.
But these days, there are no massive famines on the scale that we've seen in 1990s.
이 공급 시스템이 이미 중지된 지 오래됐기 때문에
Because the PDS system has stopped for a long time.
그러니까 가난한 사람들이 죽는 거죠.
So there has been coping mechanism in place. So only the poor now die.
그때 그러니까 한꺼번에 대량화사가 일어난 것은
The reason we had that immediate massive famine at that place in time
수십 년간 공급되던 식량이 어느 날 갑자기 중단되면서 생긴 일입니다.
was a result of the PDS system on which the people depended for their food. And every day, that system stopped one day all of a sudden.
그럼 어떻게 대응할지 아무 준비가 안 돼 있었어요.
So they had absolutely no preparation and no experience with any alternate coping mechanism to that.
오직 산이나 들에 가서 불뿌리를 캐는 것 이외에 아무 방법도 몰랐습니다.
So they didn't have anything except, to know what to do except go to the hills and start digging up roots and survive on those.
지금도 역시 식량이 부족하지만 지금은 이제 자기 살 길을 계속 개인이 노력을 해서 방법을 찾고 있습니다.
So even now today, there's absolute lack of food, obviously, but people have developed their own individual coping mechanism and survival methods so that they try to get by as much as possible.
그래서 그 당시에는 이렇게 한꺼번에 죽을 수밖에 없는 지난해 코리가 살펴보면 그런 조건이었습니다.
So looking back, if you analyze the situation, it's almost inevitable that a lot of people would starve to death with the stoppage of the PDS system, the way it happened.
Let me ask a question about now, because what we talked about before was between 1995 and 1998. That was 16 years ago, it was a while ago. The book that I wrote was published in 2001, so that was even 13 years ago. A lot has happened since then. Kim Jong-il has died. His son, who's in his late 20s, has taken over. Kim Jong-un, 3 years ago, he took over. What is the situation now in North Korea? Is there chronic malnutrition? Is there stunting, or is that a small percentage of the population?
소위 98년도, 99년도 들어오면서 대량화산은 멈췄습니다.
So the massive famine actually stopped in 1999.
그건 국제사회의 지원입니다.
And the reason for that was international aid
그리고 남한에서의 지원이었고
and also aid from South Korea directly to the north.
그 이후에도 기아 상황은 계속됐습니다.
But even afterwards, starvation continued.
간혹 어떤 해는 많이 죽기도 하고 적게 죽기도 하고 그랬습니다.
In some years it would be better than others, but people still starved.
그러니까 이제 국제사회의 지원이 일단은 대량화사를 멈춘 겁니다.
But it was true that international aid did stop massive famine.
그다음에 사람들은 자기 살 길을 찾기 시작했어요.
Then people started to change their behavior and started to find ways to cope.
정부의 노력에 의해서 멈춘 게 아니라 개인의 노력에 의해서 어느 정도 멈춘 겁니다.
So the famine did not stop because North Korean regime did something. famine stopped because people started to kind of lose their dependency on the government and started to finding their own ways to survive.
그러면 식량 생산이 낮을 수밖에 없는 어떤 조건 해결이 된 건 하나도 없습니다.
But the underlying factors that actually resulted in low production of food still were there.
비료도 없고
Because they had no fertilizers,
비닐 같은 것도 없고
they had no plastics or vinyl.
농약도 없고
Plastics and vinyl are needed for the rice bags.
모내기를 이렇게 먹자리를 그러니까 벼농사를 지으려면 그 비닐로서 먹자리를 해서 옮겨야 되는데 비닐이 없으면 이렇게 모를 일찍 재배를 못하기 때문에 농농사에서는 치명적 타격이.
Basically, without the vinyl plastic, you said is crucial in cultivating rice and rice paddies because you need those to actually move the seedlings to a permanent location.
그다음에 기름이 없으니까 기계로 땅을 갈지 못합니다. 트랙터로.
So since they didn't have any fuel to run those tractors or mechanical tools, they couldn't, cultivate new lands.
그러니까 다시 소를 가지고 땅을 갈기 시작.
So they started using cows again.
그러니까 깊이 갈지 못하죠.
So they can't really dig that deeply with, livestock.
20년이 지났지만 이 문제는 하나도 해결이 안 됐어요.
So even after 20 years, none of these problems have been solved.
그래서 식량이 증산될 수 있는 아무런 조건도 안 됐습니다.
There has been no fundamental resolution to the issues that drove low harvest or production in the first place.
다만 이제 지금 변화가 있는 거는요.
The only change that we do see, however,
저희들도 개총 북한에 요청을 했는데
and this is what we've been asking North Korean officials all along.
일단 집단 농장을 개인농으로 바꾸자.
So they're actually transitioning their collective farming into more of a private farming system
그리고 그 생산된 것을 시장에 처분할 권한을 주자.
and give individual farmers the ability to deal with, their harvest amounts the way they see it.
그러면 뭐 무슨 수를 쓰든지 개인의 생산을 더 할 거다.
Then, you will incentivize individual farmers to increase their production in this way.
북한 정부는 처음에 그걸 안 받아들였습니다.
At first, North Korean authorities refused.
첫째, 사회주의의 근간을 갖는다.
First, they said, this is against our socialist policies.
두 번째, 농자재가 공급이 안 되는데 개인용으로 전환한다고 생산이 될 이유가 별로 없다.
And second, since we're not providing them with any fertilizers or any other supports, what would, change the distribution methodology do in order to increase production?
적은 식량인데 국가가 통제원자고 개인이 갖게 되면 국가적으로 굉장히 어렵다. 식량을 이렇게 조절하기가.
So from a national regime's perspective, if the harvest amount doesn't change and you give people ability to hold more of their private hoard of foods, then the nation will suffer as a whole, because they won't get as much food.
특히 개인농으로 전환하려면 이 농기구 같은 걸 다 분배를 해야 되기 때문에 그게 안 된다.
So another logistical nightmare was the redistribution of all the support material for food in terms of the mechanical, the fertilizers and whatnot.
충분히 이유가 있었습니다.
So they did have legitimate reasons to resist the change in policies.
그러나 다른 방법이 없지 않느냐.
But I said there are no other options, however.
저는 북한 농민들을 살펴봤습니다.
So I actually, observed the farmers,
그들은 농사일은 거의 관심이 없습니다.
and we realized that they had no interest in actually contributing to the collective farm,
생산해봐야 자기 게 안 되니까.
because no matter how hard they worked, none of them became theirs.
그래서 산 기탈에 올라가서 그 떼기밭을 일궈서 자기 식량을 보충합니다.
So basically, they would spend all their time creating their own private plots on the hills, on the side of mountains.
개인에게는 그게 이익이 될지 몰라도
But for individuals that work for them,
국가 전체적으로 보면 굉장한 노동력 낭비입니다.
but from a national perspective, that's really a dissolution of their labor pool.
그 정렬을 오히려 좋은 땅에다가 투자를 한다면 훨씬 생산량이 많아질 거 아니냐.
So if the government could actually refocus all those efforts into the richer fields, basically, then the production will shoot up.
남나라에 구걸하지 말고 주민들에게 맡기면 생산량이 늘어날 수밖에 없다.
So instead of asking and begging the international community for food, year after year, just kind of reformulate your policies so that you incentivize your own people to produce more food.
이제 외부로부터 봉쇄돼서 더 지원이 어렵게 되니까.
So since the flow of international aid trickled to a slow crawl,
지금 작년부터 제도가 바뀌었습니다.
So they finally listened and started changing their agricultural policies starting last year.
아직 완전 개인 농은 아니고 4인 내지 5인의 분조에다가 배분을 하고요.
So they are not actually recognized in fully a private property rights per se, but each unit, which consists of 4 to 5 people, have the ability to deal with their own harvest.
그러니까 한 가족 내지 두 가족 정도.
So basically that's 1 or 2 families at most.
그리고 생산된 거에 70%를 자유롭게 처분할 권한을 줬습니다.
And they have the freedom to take 70% of the harvest amount and to do with it as they will.
아직 결과가 아직 확실하게 증상이 됐다는 결과가 아직 뚜렷하게 나온 건 없습니다.
So we still don't have an absolute proof that this increased the overall production amount
주민들이 아직 잘 믿지 못한다고 합니다.
because there's still a lack of trust on the basically on how long and how solid this policy would last by the people.
또 이래놓고 또 생산하면 가져갈 거 아닌가.
Because they think the government might be tricking them, so increase the harvest amount, but then the government will come in and actually change their mind and take it all.
그래서 생산량의 변화를 아직 뚜렷이 이렇게 검증할 수는 없습니다.
So those factors are leading to still, the verdict is still out there. We haven't really seen proof of increased production.
그러면 제도는 이렇게 바뀌었고 증상은 예측하고 있습니다.
But we've seen this shift in policies, and we do predict an increase in the harvest amount in the future.
올해 봄에 심한 가뭄이 있었습니다.
But unfortunately, North Korea suffered a severe drought in spring this year.
그래서 지금 굉장히 식량 생산량이 낮아지고 다시 아사자가 발생한다고 소식이 들려옵니다.
So we're hearing news that really severely impacted the overall harvest, and we're seeing people starving to death again in North Korea.
그래서 저는 이 제도의 효과를 아직 보지 못하는데 이런 어려움을 닥치기 때문에 이 제도를 바꿔도 효과가 없다 이런 결론이 혹시 나올까 해서 지금 들여다보고 있습니다.
So my fear is that North Korean authorities would say that these new policies did not work based on this, when the real culprit is the actual the drought that caused the drop in harvest.
지금 일부 작은 공장들 이런 사업체들도 대부분 이런 식으로 바뀌어 나가고 있습니다.
So even those small industries and small factories, and they're also getting the same type of kind of percentage distribution policies.
그 맡은 책임자가 그 노동자와 함께 모든 것을 30%는 정부에 바치고 70%는 자기들이 갖도록 이렇게 농업부가 똑같이 지금 바꿔 나가고 있습니다.
So basically, in terms of those industries as well, they would only remit 30% of the products to the government, and have the freedom to do what they will with the rest of 70%.
김정은 들어오고 지금 3년 동안 지켜봤을 때 주민의 생활은 아주 개선된 게 아직은 없습니다.
So in the last 3 years since Kim Jong-un took over, there has been no improvements at all to the lives of the people.
그러나 평양은 확실히 변화가 있습니다.
However, there has been a market change around and inside Pyongyang.
물자도 많고
A lot more material goods,
활기도 있고
a lot more, it's a lot livelier.
조금 더 자유로워진 것 같고
There seems to be a little more freedom.
그래서 평양과 지방 사이의 이 간격이 더 커지고 있습니다.
So the inequalities between Pyongyang and the rest of the country has grown bigger.
정치적인 불안정은 밖에서 보는 것처럼 그렇지만 비교적 안정되어 있는 것 같습니다.
So in terms of political instabilities, contrary to what we see from outside, it seems to be fairly stable from their internal perspective.
그러나 이런 경제적인 것이 개선되지 않으면 저는 체제의 불안정은 계속 남아있다고 생각합니다.
But of course, in the long run, unless they do resolve their economic situation, that will feed into increasing instability to the regime.
주민들은 어떤 변화를 기대했는데
Because people did expect some changes to happen.
근데 3년 지나도 삶의 변화가 없으니까
But even after 3 years after he took power, there has been no change at all at their level.
이것은 더 큰 불만으로 나타날 가능성도
And
있습니다.
there's a good possibility that would actually lead to a greater expression of complaints or issues.
Let's open it to questions now from the audience. Are there any questions from the students or faculty? No question, yes.
What is the current trade policy and with the U.S. stance, and also we hear a lot about their program with, sending, nuclear, something out into testing nuclear weapons, is something that they're doing, and how much of their resources are going to that program, and the effect that, people are having because of that.
그 우리 사회와 북한은 굉장히 시스템이 다릅니다.
So the economic system in North Korea is wholly different from what we are familiar with.
제1경제, 제2경제라는 말이 있습니다.
So there's a term for the first economy and second economy. There are two tiers in North Korea.
제1경제라는 것은 소위 말하면 국민경제를 말하고요.
The first economy is the economy as we understand it, the people's economy.
제2경제는 군수경제입니다.
The second economy has to do with their military industrial economy.
이것은 완전히 분리되어 있습니다.
And they're totally separate entities.
그래서 이 핵을 개발하거나 무기를 개발하는 것은 그냥 군수산업에서 하는 겁니다.
So basically what they did, the development of their weapons and whatever that we hear of, it's really a product of their second tier economy.
북한은 이렇게 무기를 만들어서 외부에 수출합니다.
So North Korea manufactures a lot of weapons and exports them to the outside.
그 수입으로 다시 무기를 계속 만들고 있습니다.
And from the profits from that, they reinvest into making and developing more weapons.
거기서 수입이 많다 해도 국민경제로 돌아오지 않습니다.
So just because they create a lot of profits out of that economy doesn't mean that profit is shared with the rest of the country.
그건 완전히 경제 방식이 다릅니다.
So it's a two wholly separate system.
또 국민경제의 돈을 군수경제로 가져가지도 않습니다.
And also the other, it holds the other way as well. Any products that's created by the first tier economy does not go over to the second economy.
뭐 가져갈 것도 없고요.
Well, there's nothing left over, first of all.
그래서 이런 거기에 돈을 쓰지 않으면 식량을 수입한다. 이건 우리 생각이지 북한 시스템은 그렇지 않습니다.
So our thinking that if they spend less money on weapons developments, they'll have more money left over to feed their people. It doesn't work that way within North Korea. That's our thinking. It doesn't actually apply to how North Korean system is run.
Who are they selling their weapons to?
What which countries?
그거 미국에서 알면 다 막죠.
So if the U.S. knew about this, then they would actually block all those rights.
It's outside of Korea, North Korea. It's outside,
네네.
it's not-
네네네. 주로 중동, 아프리카.
Usually to African countries or Middle East countries.
왜냐하면 총 같은 거는 값도 싸고 질도 좋습니다.
Because North Korean actually guns, for example, small guns actually are high quality and they're cheaper.
그다음 화약도 굉장히 값이 삽니다.
And also their gunpowder is also very cheap.
그다음에 이렇게 소형 미사일 같은 것도 많이 팔려요.
And they also sell a lot of small missile.
그다음에 질은 괜찮고 값이 사기 때문에 많이 구입을 합니다.
So it's actually fairly popular in the markets for weapons because they're cheaper, of high quality.
Next, please.
I realize it's moderately off topic, but I saw you're wearing the Hong Kong student yellow ribbon. I was wondering if you had anything to say about it.
그래서 홍콩에서 시위에 때문에 착용하고 계시는 것 같아요. 지금 노란 리본을 해서 거기에 대해서 말씀을 해주시는 것 같으시죠.
저는 한국 때문에 이게 착용한 건 아니에요. 지난 4월에 한국에서 세월호가 침몰해서 한국인들 304명이 죽었습니다.
So he's not wearing
그것을
it.
추모하기 위해서.
So he's not actually wearing it to support the Hong Kong protesters per se. He actually started wearing it last April when the Sewol ferry in South Korea capsized and kind of killed, entombed basically in the seas about 304 people, including 200 plus students.
그 진상 규명이 한국에서 제대로 되고 있지 않습니다.
So the investigation is not going well in South Korea to get into the bottom of the truth on why that had to happen.
추모도 있지만은 진상이 규명되기를 바라는 이 사건을 우리가 잊지 않고 있다는 것으로 우리가 작용하고 있습니다.
So we wear it as a sign of respect, obviously, to the dead, but as well as to encourage and keep alive the momentum to make sure that we know exactly what happened and how to fix it in the future.
Thank you.
Did you have one? Yeah.
What long-lasting effects of the famine have you noticed on the population in North Korea in terms of their psychological health?
자기 주변으로 정신적 건강도 있어서 아사나 가는 시민자들이 그런 생각입니다.
첫째 마음의 상처가 굉장히 크고요.
There's a huge collective, obviously, scar across all North Korea.
이렇게 자괴감이 큽니다.
So they have survivor's guilt. We see a lot.
자기 자식이 죽는데도 자기가 아무것도 못했다.
The fact that parents had to watch his kids die without being able to do anything.
자기가 부모가 죽는데도 자기가 아무것도 못했다.
Seeing their elderly parents die without being able to help them.
그런 자괴감이 크고요.
So there's a huge survivor's guilt.
두 번째는 분노가 있습니다.
And second, there's a huge rage.
국가와 당에 충성을 했는데
So they actually spent all their time, they were loyal to the party and to the nation.
그런데 그들이 내 자식이나 내 부모가 죽을 때도 그걸 아무도 도와주지 않았다.
Yet none of them could help him while he watched his family die.
그래서 마음의 충성심이 없어졌어요.
So there's no sense of that contract, social contract anymore in North Korea, no loyalty.
이렇게 통제가 돼서 유지가 되지 자발적 충성심은 없어졌어요.
So the social order is maintained through a severe, strict command and control structure, not through any voluntary loyalty to the regime.
도덕성이 많이 붕괴가 됐어요.
A lot of ethics, actually, a lot of foundational ethics disappeared.
그러니까 이게 악착같이 나쁜 짓을 했어라도 나쁜 짓을 했어라도 이렇게 노력한 사람은 먹고 살고 이렇게 착한 사람들은 대부분 죽었다고 자기들이.
Because what people have seen is that those people, those bad people who would do anything to survive, managed to thrive, while those people who actually followed the rules died off.
훔치든지 뺐든지 어떻든 수단 방법을 안 가려야 살 수 있지 정상적인 룰로 하면 살아날 수가 없었어요.
So the big lessons learned is that you have to do anything in order to survive, even become engaged in crimes. Otherwise, you will die.
그다음에 정부나 이런 남의 말을 잘 안 듣는 습성이 있습니다.
And third, people don't trust whatever comes out of the government or anybody else.
그 말 믿었다가 이 손해만 받기 때문에.
Because in the past, whatever they said, they believed in, but it only led to suffering and loss.
그리고 이게 일거리가 없어서 20년 가까이를 사람들이 이렇게 제대로 된 일거리가 없습니다.
And for the last 20 years, a lot of people didn't have a job that they could speak to, really.
그러니까 이게 착실성, 성실성이 매우 소멸됐어요.
So that actually led to a lack of industry among the people.
한국에 지금 한 3만 명이 들어와 있는데
So there are about 30,000 North Korean refugees who have resettled in South Korea.
한국 사회에서는 그들에 대한 경제적 지원만 생각하지
So in South Korea, we only provide them with economic support.
심리적인 상처를 치료하지 않습니다.
But we ignore the psychological scars they bring with them.
그래서 한국에 들어와서 절반 이상이 제대로 사회에 적응을 못하고 있습니다.
So more than half of the resettled North Korean refugees in South Korea are not actually doing so well and adjusting to their new society.
그래서 심리적인 좀 믿음의 붕괴라 그럴까요? 그런 게 아주 심합니다.
So that lack of trust, ingrained lack of trust towards any institutions of others is very severe that we see often in North Koreans.
Sir, we would love to be able to spend some more time with you.
네.
It has been wonderful. Hopefully, we can have you back again. But many of our students have got to get to class, and they've got to pick up lunch that we have for them across the way. So let's give the Venerable Pang Yun Sin a